Here we go. Let's go live.
To make all my longer late dreams come true.
Hello, everybody. Bob Luss coming at you from Miltenberger Ranch outside of Hyco, Texas. Let's go live and spend an hour. I'm hanging out in Bay Miltenberger's man cave / party barn. I mean, it's all signed up out here. Holy cow, you can see it's a pretty cool place. Hello, Jeremy Day. Good to see you, pal. I got your message earlier. John Dyer, good to see you. So, I don't even have any props here, but I got a lot of eye candy all around. Matter of fact, y'all would not believe what's laying here. Here's a taxidermy bobcat laying right here beside me. I don't want to pick it up. I'm afraid it'll fall apart. Hey, let's have a little bit of fun. Yeah, it's a very cool spot, Tim Stewart, if you only knew. Hey, you guys know the drill. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Click like. Share this to your timeline, and you're eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat. We got some very cool hats in, so I'll get with Leanne next week, and we'll see if we can't do a drawing. But you guys know what you got to do. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Share it. Click like, and you're in. Yep. Bill Shrum, you've been here. We're doing it again. Hello, Danny Mack. Good to see you. Yeah, that background looks familiar. So I was kind of sniffing around for some topics late, and Bay said, hey, why don't you talk about lake turnover? Well, we've covered that topic, but let's do it again. It's this time of year. Andy Benson's here with Mossback. Here's what we're doing. We got most of the day tomorrow, and then half the day on Thursday. We're going to do a bunch of very cool fisheries science. We got 4 electrofishing boats coming. I got like 4 outstanding anglers that are coming. We got some other guys. The primary mission is to harvest as many carp, channel catfish, gar, and some crappie out of Bay's 104-acre lake out here behind me. And this lake is one of the most amazing lakes I've ever met. It's highly productive, and all the things have come together for it to be that way. The nutrients are recycled. The lake rises and falls. It's got enough shallow depth where if the lake drops 4 or 5 feet, which in this part of Texas it can sure do that, then it consolidates and congregates the fishery so the big fish feed better, grow bigger, and then when it can go from 104 acres down to 70 acres, which means there's 30 acres that will grow up in weeds and willow trees and things like that. So when the lake, 18 months, 2 years later after a drought, when it fills back up, you got brand new habitat there, and it has the new lake syndrome all over again. So where most lakes go through the new lake syndrome, where it grows big fish early in its career, this lake does it over and over. And what's really amazing is how the volume and mass of all the species of fish have been able to thrive out here. So the goal is, number one, don't screw it up. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that I've seen a lake that was in great shape. They do a handful of things and mess it up. Well, we don't want to do that here. We want to keep this lake in the shape that it's in. We just want to rearrange the fishery. We want to grow more big bass, have higher bass catch rates. And of course there's a little bit of pain. We went fishing today for a couple hours and only caught 4 fish, but this lake is just packed full of bait fish. Well, the temperature at the surface was 63 degrees today, and the deepest water is 18 feet. So I thought I'd start off talking a little bit about lake turnover, because this is a real important concept to wrap our brains around. We really need to know about this. In the spring, when we're coming out of winter and the temperature starts to rise, water expands. Water at 39 degrees is the heaviest it will ever be. Water cooler than that is less dense. Water warmer than that is less dense. Ice floats. It's got to be less dense. When you got a layer of ice sitting on top of a pond, the water below the ice has got to be warmer than 32 degrees, or it would be, drum roll, ice. So the physics of water is pretty fascinating. So in the springtime, when the days start getting longer and the sunlight penetrates down, into the water, starts to warm it up, the water can only receive that warmness down to a certain depth because horizontal currents are moving that water, wave action. There's nothing vertical to move the bottom water up to where it can contact the sunlight and heat. So what happens is you get like a layer cake. You get a warm layer of water sitting on top of a cooler layer of water. The defining line between those two is called the thermocline. Well, the thermocline can be, we looked at the lake in Kansas City a month ago, and that thermocline was about 3 feet thick, where I've seen them 6 inches thick. So what happens this time of year is the water temperature begins to drop. As soon as that warm layer of water reaches the temperature of the water at the thermocline and beneath it, those two layers mix, and that's called a turnover. And I don't know where the apple turnover thing came from in the description. You guys might explain that to me, but that's how a turnover works. So what's the significance of that? Well, when a lake turns over and it does it properly, those two layers of water mix, and then the temperature becomes autonomous from top to bottom. Well, that lower layer of water is devoid of oxygen. Well, there's only 2 ways oxygen can enter water and get dissolved into water. One is from photosynthesis from plants. No plants living below the thermocline, and the other one is to contact the atmosphere. So when we start talking about happy water, one of the points that we try to make is the more water can move, the more that it can contact the atmosphere, the cleaner it becomes. It can dispose of gases it doesn't need and absorb gases that it does need. So water's pretty magical. Well, when the water turns over, that opens up the entire water column for fish to be able to use, and they will. And so you see a whole lot of engagement going on. Fish behavior starts to change when the temperature drops. Right now, this time of year, the food chain should be at its peak, and the bass are gorging themselves on that food chain. And when you start thinking about all these different species of fish, for example, like Threadfin Shad, which Bay's got thousands, hundreds of thousands of those in this fertile lake, and the lake's fertility is maintained by the fishery. We don't put any fertilizer in this lake. That ain't going to happen. The fishery does it. The gizzard shad and the carp that are in this lake help keep stirring it up to where the nutrients keep getting recycled. Well, where I'm going with that is with that fertile water, the survival rates of young fish, especially threadfin shad, just skyrocket. Well, now the food chain is at its peak, and when the water starts to cool down, some of these fish get a little bit more sluggish. Like when the water temperature hits the 50s, the threadfin shad are going to be really, really slow. And the bass can gorge themselves. There's tilapia in this lake. Tilapia start getting sluggish in the 60s, like now. So the bass should be just gorging themselves and getting fat. The predator fish, we caught a channel catfish today that looked as healthy as any channel catfish I've ever seen. The color was great, the relative weight was great. Bay's feeding them, but there's a lot of natural food out there that's growing as well. So here's the moral of the story. This time of year, your ponds and lakes are going to turn over. That's normal. And I would expect it to happen. The thing is ways to see it or notice it is the color changes, and you might get a mild kind of a mildewy smell or a kind of a moldy smell. And there's Debbie Dobbs, my wife, checking in. Hello, Fred Bingaman. Let's see here. I'm going to back up here. There's Kenny Sanderson. Hello, Kenny. Good to see you, buddy. Glad you guys are hanging out with me. So we got Florida, Magnolia, Texas. We got North Carolina, Oklahoma. Let's see who else we got. There's Harrison Davis. Harrison's checking in all the way from Georgia, I believe, if I remember right. Yeah, Harrison's in Georgia. Harrison, I haven't forgotten about you. I'm just busy. All right, Jeremy Day. No ducks have shown up at my lake yet. I've created a half-acre marsh area. I can siphon to flood it when we're not in a drought. What plants besides Japanese millet would you plant around the lake and in the marsh area? Marsh area butts up against the creek. I usually have wood ducks. I'd like to attract more. I don't have a lot of plants in the water yet. So I tell you what I would do. I would get in touch with Turner Seed Company in Breckenridge, Texas. They've got different mixes for different regions of the nation. So they've got, you know, a variety of different kinds. Japanese millet's good. Smartweed's good. There's a variety of plants, and I would contact a local seed company that does that sort of thing and see what works best in your part of the country. That's where I'd go. Hello, Mark Dyer, Nebraska. He prefers apple turnover to crawfish bread. Dude, you know what? I have not made crawfish bread in a while. We need to do that. Ron Krisman checking in south of Grand Rapids. Hello, Deborah Corlew from Northwest Illinois. So we got the country's well represented here. So you guys pitch me a few questions, and let's see if we can't take a few here. I'm looking on my phone. Here it is. Let's see here. Something came here. Let me see. John Dyer sent me something. So if you go to the Pond Boss YouTube channel, we've got a lot of content, and John is helping with some of that content. He's spicing it up a little bit. He's taking some of these reels like this and extracting the meat and putting it into short videos and short reels to put on the Pond Boss YouTube page. So go to the Pond Boss YouTube page. So here's one. We got something. It looks like it happened just a few weeks ago, and I hadn't seen it yet. What is the ideal size and depth of a pond if you want to grow trophy bass? I live on a 100-acre lake, and it's beautiful and thriving nicely, but unfortunately it's in an HOA-type structured subdivision, and I'm tired of trying to get these people to do what's right. I'm ready to move and dig a pond or find land with an existing pond or lake. I'm in South Louisiana on the Mississippi state line. You know what? If you want to grow trophy bass, I'm going to tell you the minimum size is 3 acres, and you're not going to grow very many trophy bass in 3 acres of water. However, Greg McMillan, who I know is watching this show, he's got a 2.5-acre pond, and he had an electrofish this week, and he's really pushing that pond, pushing it really hard, you know, and that guy's probably got 8 or 10 legitimate trophy bass in that lake. If you want to go through it where you don't have to push it, I'd say 5 or 6 acres is probably big enough to have a trophy bass fishery. And you know, the thing about when somebody says trophy bass, that to me that's relative. You know, what's your trophy bass? Mine's probably 6 pounds. Is yours 8, 7, 4, 10? You know, just here's a kind of a way to just ponder your way through that. Forgive the pun. If a 2.5 or 3 acre pond like what Greg has, Greg's probably got close to 200 pounds of bass in that 2.5 acre pond. But he's got several hundred pounds of bait fish, bluegill, threadfin shad, gizzard shad, you know, bluegills, et cetera, et cetera. So he's pushing it quite a bit. So that's, you know, a normal trophy bass lake, 50 to 75 or 80 pounds of bass per acre is pretty standard fare. And hey, Greg, I knew you'd chime in there, buddy. So Greg's pushing it a little bit. It's working. It's working for him. What I did, but you know, I did caution Greg, and I'll caution all of you, when you try to push a pond to its limits, the pond's going to push back every single time. I don't care what you're doing, you're going to get a pushback. And that pushback may be, you know, in the form of predators. Like today on Bays Lake, we saw a flock of probably 150 cormorants getting ready to land on his lake, and we were able to just kind of circle the lake a little bit and rearrange their flight path. But those things can do it. They can eat a lot of fish. All right, there's David Schneiderman, Easy Docks of Texas. What's the easiest way to tell shellcrackers from bluegills? Yeah, Leanne, you like that? I'm in Bay's man cave over here in his party barn, and this is going to be our center for the next couple of days. Very cool. All right, let me see here. Oh, Lori Moreno One Key. Hi, Bob from Northern California. Looks like we got both coasts pretty well represented. California, Carolinas. Jeremy, can you tell me more about ospreys? First of all, I love ospreys. I really started studying ospreys probably 30 years ago, and it got more intense with me watching them when I was working on Richmond Mill Lake up in North Carolina, near Laurinburg, North Carolina. There was a nesting pair, and those things were notorious for hitting the feeders. They would go down and snag a bluegill, you know, a pound and a quarter bluegill, and haul it up to the nest and shred it up and feed it to the babies. And Dr. Jim Morgan was okay with that. And then bald eagle showed up, and the Ospreys ran the bald eagle off. So it was really entertaining. And when they had guests and clients there to fish, it was fun to watch the Ospreys do what the Ospreys do. I was electrofishing Ryan Newman's lake near Statesville, North Carolina one time, and we'd shocked up quite a few small bluegills, and I'd turned the shocker boat around, and I saw an osprey hovering like a helicopter, and I pointed at it, and Ryan saw it about the same time, and that osprey came down, dove down, disappeared under the water, came out of the water and flew off with about a half-pound bluegill in its talons. And we both just high-fived each other because we thought that was pretty cool. So I don't know what you want to know about ospreys. They're definitely predators, but in my opinion, Jeremy Day, with a lake your size, they're not going to hurt the population of fish. You know, as a matter of fact, they may help it. They're going to harvest some fish, but I think the offset is that you get to enjoy seeing them. Here's a pretty cool story talking about birds of prey. I got a call, oh gosh, this was, I don't know, a long time ago. I probably still had color in my beard. From Mike Mitchell, fisheries biologist from Longmont, Colorado. And he was telling me a story about this family, the third generation landowners, wealthy people, and he had renovated over 2 miles of trout stream for them. And, oh, there's my daughter Lindsay checking in. Hello, Lindy the Pooh. So anyway, he called me and he said, I got a story for you. So this mega wealthy landowner had Mike renovate 2 miles of trout stream, which cost a lot of money, a lot of permitting, and they had some 4 and 5 pound rainbow trout in this stream they'd renovated. And the landowner called Mike on a Sunday morning and said, hey, something just happened. Said a bald eagle, a juvenile bald eagle just dove down, grabbed about a 3 pound trout, drug it out on the bank, and is eating it. And Mike said, boy, a chill went down my spine. I was worried about that fish. And he said, Mike, I've been coming here since I was a little boy. And back when I was a little boy, we had nesting pairs of eagles. And we've not had that since then until we renovated this trout stream. And now this is one of the young eagles in the nest, and I got to watch it catch one of its first fish. Can we get some more trout? That kind of gives you a perspective on the way people look at these things. Let's see what Bill Schrum says here. He says, my water temperatures dropped from 64 to 55 in the last week. Is it too late to try to harvest my tilapia in my 2-acre pond? No, it's not too late. And as a matter of fact, your water temperatures are getting ready to go up. One thing I would look at, Bill, is if your feeder's going and the water temperature pops back up into the 60s, see if those tilapia feed. If they feed, you can catch them with a cast net. Another thing you can do is that late in the afternoons when the water temperature is going up, because we're going to have 80-degree days for the next few days, they'll come to the surface late in the afternoon trying to find that warmer water, and you can actually get out there. They'll be sluggish. You can get out there in a boat and catch them with a dip net. Otherwise, you're probably not going to catch them. I don't know how easy it'll be to catch on a hook. You probably could catch them on fish food if you tell it. Jeremy Day, easiest way to tell a shellcracker from a bluegill. Well, there's several good ways. Bluegills, if you raise the dorsal fin up on a bluegill and you look at the very end of it toward the tail, there's always a black dot. You didn't know that little tidbit, did you? Redear / shellcrackers don't have that that black dot. Now, shellcrackers also, right on their gill flap, they have a little tinge of orange. The females, the orange is a lighter color orange. The males have a darker color of orange. But the Redear shellcracker, they don't have that black dot at the base of at the dorsal fin in the far back. So there you go. Dave Weber, meet the fish truck at the local farm store to get a few Redear Sunfish and bluegill from my new pond. Was there with 40 or more lost souls. I bet you could put an entire chapter in the book about the fish truck. Yes, you could. fit right in with Walmart. Not really. I mean, you know, people come into the fish truck, that's what they do, and that's the best way, because what the fish truck does, what I love about the fish truck, is if you only want a few fish, you know, and you want some specialty fish, and that's an easy way to do it. That's a good way. Debbie's going to ask me what I'm drinking. Water and Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper Zero. And maybe some tequila, although I don't know. I'm just kidding, honey. Or maybe I'm not. Let's see here. Ron Krisman, thoughts on what's a fast establishing plant for pond edge? I'm talking the transition from mow grass to water that may vary in water level. Trying to keep a new edge from washing away. Wrong time of year, Ron, but you already knew that. You know, there's some reeds and sedges that I like that only get to be, you know, just a few inches tall. I like those. I also like arrowhead. I like Louisiana irises. However, I don't know how well that'll do in northern Michigan or parts of Michigan. Let's see here. Sedges and reeds, short versions. Let's see here. Oh, see Tim Jackson, Purina guy, checking in from the Carolinas. Hello, Tim. Shellcrackers have an orange. There you go. There's your answer right there. There's something else, another difference between shellcrackers and bluegill. Bluegill have vertical bars, and shellcrackers are more mottled. There you go. Jeremy Day, seining the ponds. Okay, so Jeremy's going to seine his hatchery pond this week, and he's got him a 3/8 inch mesh, brand new seine. He's going to pop the cherry on that thing and have a big time. Yes, keep data. Now, let me tell you how to do that. You need a scale, and if you can have a scale that can weigh 20 pounds, take a 5-gallon bucket and put about 20 pounds of water in it, and then add the fish and weigh the pounds of fish. You're going to be catching, he's harvesting bluegill babies out of a pond. So if you can calculate or figure out how many pounds of bluegill that you harvest and move into your lake, but take half a pound and count those. So you figure out how many you have per pound multiplied by how many pounds you have, and that's going to give you a head count. And then once you know how many there are per pound and you can extrapolate out the head count, then you're going to see what your pond can produce. And then you can that'll help you figure out how long you need to leave them in, how big they're going to get. So I went through that a little bit quick. Weigh a bucket of water. Put about this much water in a 5-gallon bucket. Weigh it. Tear it to 0 if you have a good scale. You can use a hanging scale like you can buy at Academy for weighing, bass and things. But you need to learn how many pounds of fish you actually have. And then if you can weigh out like half a pound and count that half a pound, for example, the way we calculate fish weight or fish count is small bluegills may weigh 200 per pound. That means 5 pounds of them, there's 1,000 head count. Those fish are about that big. So if you can get a pretty accurate head count, write that down and log it in and put the date, how many pounds of fish, what your weight counts were, and if you'll do 3 weight counts, if you weigh half a pound of fish 3 times and count them, divide that by 3, that's your average. That's how they do it at the fish farms. And that way you know really, really closely how many bluegill you're adding to your pond or to your lake. So when you add those fish to the lake, then you can circle back later and I got to rearrange my legs. And then you can circle back later and see what kind of an impact that's had on your fishery on your big lake. So that's probably more than you wanted to hear. Tim Stewart from South Florida near Okeechobee. Water temperature dipped below 70 briefly this weekend. The tilapia hung around the surface in shallow vegetation and freaked out at the slightest disturbance. Often sound like a troop of monkeys cannonballing out of trees. Okay, I'm going to process that just a minute there, Tim. Cannon like a troop of monkeys cannonballing out of trees. I think I'm going to leave that laying right where it is. I know Tim, and I've never seen him hang out with a troop of monkeys, although he's probably been to Costa Rica and I haven't. You know, I like that. Tilapia hung around surface in shallow vegetation and freaked out at the slightest disturbance. Often sounded like a troop of monkeys cannonballing out of trees. That's a pretty good visual, Tim. You ought to be a writer, dude. I say a book in your future. All right, let's see here. Tim Deal, the cooling fan of my Air Max aerator cabinet runs 24/7 regardless whether the compressor is running or not. I called them to ask if this is a mistake. They said no, it's intended to run 24/7 because they recommend running the aerator 24/7. That doesn't sound right to me. I'm still running mine from 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. What schedule do you recommend for winter? Here's what I recommend for winter. If you've run your aeration system on a timer through the course of the summer, it's done its job. And its job is to keep the water happy. The job is to process as much organic waste as you can. Its job is to keep the water clean and get it ready to go into the wintertime. And so in North Carolina, the schedule I would recommend for running an aeration system is when it gets to 55 degrees, turn it off, go through the routine maintenance, change the vanes, whatever. I don't remember how an Air Max aeration system works, but go through the regular maintenance and then turn it back on when the water temperature rises above 55 in the spring. That's my recommendation. Best place to buy sedges in volume. I don't know. Look at Stonefly Nursery. I'm getting to know those guys a little bit better. Maybe she's asking me to answer a question here. Tim Deal's question. Did I get it? Let me back up here. Tim Deal. Yeah, honey. Baby doll, I just hadn't gotten to it yet. There it is. I just answered it. Aeration system. Best place to buy sedges. Sedges have edges, by the way. I'll start with Stonefly, and I got a feeling that they would recommend somebody to you in your neck of the woods. Harrison Davis, how likely would it be for an otter to infiltrate a 2-acre pond and eat all the 12-inch and larger largemouth bass, but not touch the larger? I'm going to say highly likely, Harrison. You know, otters, here's the way otters work. They're most active in our ponds and lakes in the wintertime when the bass are most sluggish. So when the water temperature gets down below 60 and say to the 50s and lowers into the 40s, bass, being cold-blooded, they're not moving around nearly as much as they are in warmer water, so they're harder to catch in warmer water. So I would say the likelihood for an otter to infiltrate a 2-acre pond and eat the larger largemouth bass is really, really high. The likelihood is high. So pay attention to that. Tim Stewart, they're invasive silver monkeys that cannonball out of the trees into the river near Silver Springs, Florida. See, look what you learned on this show. Had no idea about silver monkeys. I didn't even know there were Silver Springs, Florida. The monkeys that cannonball, so they jump. Okay, so Tim, I'm trying to get the visual here. So the silver monkeys climb up in trees and do like I did when I was 13 years old and cannonball out of a tree into the river. We're probably related. The monkeys and me. No sneaking up on Tim Stewart's tilapia, they spook. Hey guys, it's almost 8 o'clock. Time for a commercial. If I had a Pond Boss magazine, I'd hold it up right here and show it to you. Hey, Pond Boss, $35 a year. Say it, Bill Schrum, Jeremy Day, all you guys know this deal. Cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. Pond Boss magazine, full of nuggets. you know, every subscriber I've ever talked to says, you know, they get something out of each copy of Pond Boss Magazine. Well, that's our goal. We want you to get as much knowledge, as much experience as you can from it, and we love to share that. Purina Mills, love their fish food, especially that Aquamax Sportfish MVP. Pretty good stuff. Fish meal based, grows huge bluegills. It's the thing I like about Purina Mills is fish food is you can have a feeding program. You can feed little bitty fish, you can feed medium-sized fish, you can feed big fish. You know, and as Kenny Sanderson will testify, it's not easy to get all the fish foods depending on what part of the planet you live on, but those are really good fish foods. Texas Hunter Feeders, Texas Hunter Products. Go to TexasHunterProducts.com and take a look at what they've got. They've got some really, really good stuff. Not only do they have great fish feeders, but they've also got fish habitat. They've got all kinds of deer feeders, road feeders, deer blinds, TexasHunterProducts.com. Mossback Fish Habitat, great sponsor as well. Hanging out with Andy Benson. He and Bay have run into town up the road to Hyco here while I'm doing this show, and they're going to come back with some food here in just a little bit. And we're going to get to hang out and just shoot the breeze later on and just talk fish, talk politics, talk whatever's fun. BirdDogIt.com. Check that out. That is my son Jonathan's company that he founded, but they've got a really unique business model. Check it out. And actually there's a video of me talking about bass. So go to BirdDogIt.com, check it out on Facebook, check it out on Instagram, as well as LinkedIn, and just kind of get to know what they do. It's a pretty interesting company, different than what I did, trying to build a pond management company. Easy Docks of Texas, David Schneiderman. He hung out with us at the Institute of Higher Pondology. We absolutely had a blast 2 weeks ago. I got to tell this story. We went and electrofished and surveyed Jimmy Houston's lakes. And his report's finished. John Dyer helped put that together. I haven't had a chance to read it, but I will here in the next few days, and to send it to Jimmy. And I may share that report here on this Facebook page so you guys can see what these fisheries reports are all about. But I told those guys before we left, there were about 30 of us going over to work on his lakes. We had 2 electrofishing boats in the water. And I said, listen, do not ask Jimmy Houston to go fish his lakes. Don't do it. That ain't cool. So a group went to launch the 2 electrofishing boats with Jimmy. He showed them where the launch ramp was, and I took a group of guys, and we went down by Jimmy's house outside of Sulphur, Oklahoma, and climbed out on his dock and started waiting for the electrofishing boats to come around so we could start collecting data. So what we were going to do was hit each lake with 2 electrofishing boats, collect data, and then go, from the big lake to the second lake. Well, 20 minutes, no electrofishing boats coming around the corner from the boat ramp. 30 minutes, no boats. I thought, gosh, dog it, they've got him collared. He's talking to them. They need to be in the boats, electrofishing. We got to get this data done. Well, in a minute, I hear a boat coming around the corner, and there's Jimmy Houston in his boat on the bow with his videographer and 6 more people from the Institute of Higher Pondology. 4 of them were flogging the water fishing with Jimmy Houston. He invited them. So it worked out pretty darn good. And we had a blast. They had a great time with doing all that stuff. All right, let me back up here and take a look at some of these questions so we can make a little progress here. I'm going to back up. All right, let's see here. Mark Dyer, you can also look up KesterNursery.com. That's good. Thanks for doing that, Mark. Yep, arrowhead, lily pads, and bulrush. That's good. There you go. Bulrush is a great choice. Average growth a month for bass in the first year if you're feeding bluegill heavily. Average growth a month. I don't know how to break it down in a month because different bass grow at different rates. But I'll tell you this. If you stock bass, so Jeremy, you've had a few obstacles to overcome because you had fish in your lake that you had to stock on top of. But in an ideal situation, which very few situations are ideal, you could see bass stocked in late June, early July go from 2-inch fingerlings up to 14 inches by October. Now, here's the caveat. They're going to range in size. Stocking them at 2 inches in late June, early July. They're going to go from 2 inches to about 8 to 16 inches, probably average 12 or 13, but they grow at different rates. Habitat and environment has a gigantic influence on how well these fish grow. So I'm going to say by the fall, the best of the best are going to be 1.75 pounds. The ones that aren't growing so fast might weigh 1/4 pound. By the time you get to the second year, the best of the best might weigh 6 pounds, but the average might be 1.75 pounds. You know, and the smaller ones might be 10 ounces. So they'll range from 10 ounces up to 5 or 6 pounds. By the end of year 3, totally changes. There's a percentage of those fish that are going to grow faster than all the rest. And then there's going to be a percentage of fish that grow above average. Then there's a percentage of the fish that are going to grow average and a percentage that will never amount to much. All right, Mark Dyer. I not read good, but sure do like pictures. Are you quoting Forrest Gump or what? I not read good, but sure do like, you know, and we do put pictures in Pond Boss for those guys like Mark Dyer from Nebraska. But you know, I know Mark Dyer really well, and the good news is he has people that will read to him. I know, I tickle myself, sorry. Bob Jones, what is it? Oops, hold back, let me back the truck up a little bit. What is the water temperature where bass stop feeding regularly? I'm going to tell you this. Bass stop feeding regularly right around 55 degrees. Now, they'll continue to feed even down into the 30s because they do get hungry, and if they get an easy chance for a meal, they'll take it. Yeah, look, here's Bill Shrum. Yeah, come on, Bill, bring it on. Because Bill was one of the guys in that boat. We didn't ask. He said, if I was you, I'd get in that Ranger and go fishing. Can't turn down an offer like that from a legend. That's hilarious. Yep. And there's Danny Mack. Danny Mack was on the dock with me. The wait time was time missed with Jimmy Houston. But you know what? Jimmy Houston made up for that time missed. He was so much fun. I love that guy. He's 81 years old. His lake was 4 feet low. Listen to this. This is pretty daggum cool. So he's 81, almost 82 years old, highly active. And if you haven't looked at his social media, do that. He does a devotional every single day on his Facebook page. I mean, the guy's a devout Christian. He loves God. You know, Jesus is his Savior, as he is ours. And Jimmy is just an astonishing guy. Well, he pulls his boat up to the dock, and it's a 4-foot step from the deck of his boat to the dock. I would probably have to lay on my belly, roll over, and hope somebody would help pick me up, not Jimmy Houston. He reached up, grabbed the rail of his dock, stuck 1 foot up on the deck of his dock, and climbed right out. 81 years old. The dude, he's amazing. Hello, Dr. Howard Dietrich. I bet you're hanging out in Florida, although you might be in Iowa, although you might be in your RV traveling around somewhere. Great to see you, buddy. Harrison Davis, what would be your guess as to why a 37,000 acre lake in Georgia with relative clear water and plenty of shallow shoreline will not have any plants and weeds in it? How is this possible? A 37,000 acre lake in Georgia. The only thing that I tell you what, shut up. My hair is really good. Hey, Bay, dude, aren't you buying food somewhere? I mean, are you doing this from your truck? Jimmy Houston does have good hair. And I have a hair consultant. My wife takes care of my hair. Honey, you need to chime in and help me with Bay here. Bay's out getting food. So what would my guess be to why a 37,000 acre lake in Georgia with a relatively clear water and plenty of shallow shoreline would not have any plants and weeds in houses? It's possible for a couple of reasons. Oh, you're already home with the food? All right, I'm going to wrap up here in a minute and come hang out with you guys. Didn't take you long to go to Hyco. Dr. Pepper, 0 sugar. Debbie tells me I should not drink that. Yeah. She should say that. She's my hair consultant. She's my fashion consultant. Oh, Debbie said that Jimmy has better hair. How does she know? She wasn't there. You're killing me, Smalls. Okay, so that 37,000 acre lake in Georgia with relative clear water, plenty of shallow water, I bet you the water chemistry is bad. I bet you the water is acidic, and there's going to be some plants in it, but it's probably going to be things like spike rush, and it's going to be seasonal. The only other reason that there's something about the soil that's sterile without any nutrition at all. So a 37,000 acre lake, if it's fairly new, if it doesn't have plants in it, man, I'd be testing this. I'd be testing the water chemistry, and I'd be testing the soils. Although 37,000 acres, what are you going to do with that? Really? Jimmy Houston's got a lot of stuff better than me, Bay. But you already knew that. Hey, you guys are conspiring. So 2-inch bass stocked in July should be able to be caught now? Yeah, they should. Well, go try. No, they're not going to be too small. You need to do that. Did Jimmy Houston outfish all the guys on his boat? Absolutely, yes, he did. Not only did he outfish the guys on the boat, he outfished the electrofishing boats. So he's in the state-of-the-art electrofishing boats, Smith root boats, which can only shock down 6 feet. And he didn't get irritated, but he said, "I catch more fish than this." But the thing is that the electrofishing boat's random, where fishing is not. Did Jimmy Houston outfish? Oh yeah, yes he did. He outfished all of them. But you know what? He was pretty modest about that. Everybody caught fish. I mean, the guys on the dock caught 60-something crappie off of his dock. We weighed and measured every one of them. They fit into the database. As a matter of fact, there were as many fish caught off the dock as there was with the electrofishing boats, numbers-wise. It was different ratios and different species, etc. He'll cast that spinnerbait right in the mouth of the fish faster than you can spell. I don't even know how to spell Humperdinck, and I'm not sure you got it right. Howard Dittrich, best time of year to stock threadfin shad in north central Florida, March. Actually, you know, the thing about threadfin shad, it's the suppliers are so different around the nation. Like in Texas, for example, the majority of the threadfin shad come out of public lakes, legally harvested by people that do that. And there's only like a 6-week window to get them. So I don't know if there's even any fish hatcheries in Florida, but the best time to stock threadfin shad in north central Florida, in the Panhandle, for I know where your place is, we've hung out, would be in March, if you can get them in March. Now, if you can't get them till April, get them in April. But the best time to do it would be in March. All right, guys, pitch me another question. I'm going to run out of gas here, and Debbie's asked me to wrap up early so we can go spend a little time hanging out with Bay and Andy. So I may go do that. I'm going to wait like till 8:15. So what other kind of topic can I hit you guys with? You know what? I would encourage everybody to learn as much as you can about each individual species of fish. Learn about bluegills. How do they spawn? How often do they spawn? There are multiple spawners. Where you are may be rolling spawns. You know, it may be that they spawn every 8 weeks. You know, upstate New York is different than North Carolina, which is different than Texas. Understand how shellcrackers spawn, bluegills, red ears, you know, the threadfin shad, gizzard shad. The more you can learn about those individual species of fish, the better decisions you can make as to what role they may or may not play with you. Mike Horton, Dallas will be out harvesting Thursday and again Tuesday. We're covered in 8 to 14-inch bass. The plan is to harvest again in the spring to set the table before our bluegill and tilapia dose. What water temperature needs to be for spring harvest? Water temperature for spring harvest, Mike, is going to be 65 to 75. That's going to be the best time for spring harvest. That's what I would do. And, but you know what? Dallas Clark, who's Dallas Clark is an outstanding, up-and-coming fishery specialist with American Sportfish. The thing I love about Dallas is he's learning every day, but he incorporates what he knows into everybody's game plan who are clients of American Sportfish. And he does a really good job. I've spent time with Dallas. I've been in the boat with Dallas. He is a rock star. I'm telling you that. So I'm glad you're working with him. He's a good guy. So guys, you know what? Debbie's asked me if I would wrap up a little early, so I think that's what I may do. So we've been going 45 minutes. I'm not sure where I will be next Tuesday. Probably at home. But here's what I expect. I'll be hanging out with you. It may not be as cool a setting, but it will be mine. So until next week, thanks for hanging out with me, keeping me sharp, answering questions, and now I get to go get tormented by Bay and Andy and Debbie. So until next Tuesday night, adios.